If you've ever skipped washing your hair because the internet told you to, or you've avoided silicones like the plague, this video might just change how you approach hair care. Hi, I'm Kayley, your friendly neighborhood hairstylist, and after 15 years as a hairstylist and a hair educator, I have to admit something rather difficult. I fell for some hair myths along the way. Things like avoiding silicone and avoiding washing your hair for as long as possible felt correct at the time, but now that I know more, there is so much more nuance and truth there to talk about. So let's dive into the hair care myths that I believed and what is actually going on there. I want to say that I've always done my best with the information that I have, and I'm a research-aholic, and so I have kept myself out of several myths over the years, but in the interest of giving you guys the best information that I can, sometimes I have to admit when I was wrong. Let's break it down. First, I want to talk about the absolute of it all. I think one of the myths that trapped me the most 10 years ago and even growing up was the idea that always and never applied to hair. Stick with me. I kept hearing things like, this ingredient is gonna destroy your hair, and this is the only type of product you should ever use. And even though I didn't fall into those particular traps, I did imbibe the idea that there is a hero, a holy grail ingredient that I should be looking for. It's going to be the answer to everything. And also that there's a villain ingredient out there that is just waiting to destroy my hair. What I know now after 15 years of doing hair and listening to people's hair experiences is that there is no universal solution. There's no one ingredient or one routine that works flawlessly for everybody. And within reason, there's also not boogeyman ingredients hiding out in your shampoo either. And that's because hair care is deeply personal. It comes down to so many different things like your strand thickness, your overall density, your curl pattern or lack thereof, the amount of damage on your hair, your natural cuticle structure, your style preferences. There are thousands of different variations on what goes in to a hair care routine. So while there are helpful principles and overarching science that can help guide us in our endeavors, it's both unrealistic and unhelpful to pretend as though there's like a universal sisterhood of the traveling pants type solution to hair care. What works really well for one person might not work at all for another person, and that doesn't mean that anyone is doing it wrong. And I'm saying all this, but it makes total sense why things like you should only wash your hair every 5 days and silicone will destroy your hair catch on. We want something that's black and white. We want a very easy rubric to figure out what the heck we're supposed to do with our hair. And let's face it, something like this ingredient is going to destroy your hair is significantly more clickable than let's weigh the pros and cons of this ingredient in hair care. But the problem is that large scale, that always and never, just end up giving us incomplete information, and I think unfortunately make people that don't fit into that solution category feel broken or weird. For example, people with oily scalps were told for the longest time that they have to go 5 days without washing your hair, even though that's unrealistic for them. What's ironic is that having prolific oil production actually bodes well for your hair's beauty and longevity long term, but because of the dry shampoo messaging, I heard from a lot of people that have very oily scalps that they were feeling a little bit like dirty or ashamed, or they were overly relying on dry shampoo when it truly was never gonna be a good solution for them. And that is why nuance matters. Not because it's trendy or it's complicated, but because it is kinder, it is more accurate, and it is more empowering. So when you're trying to navigate the information waters, I think it's not about looking for the information that's the most dramatic or the most critical, but the information that actually sees how things work and includes nuance. So to bring it all together, if a product or a routine does not work for you, that doesn't mean that your hair is bad or wrong. It means that that is not a good fit for you. And there is absolutely no need to try to fit always or never into a routine that simply does not fit your real life. Quick little PS to that idea, I want to be clear that I'm not saying that everything is fine for your hair. There are clearly things that are not good for your hair, like lighting it on fire. Don't do that. Or ripping through your hair as hard as you can with a hairbrush. Also don't do that. But then there are also things that are definitely bad for your hair and we still do them, like bleaching or coloring your hair or heat styling your hair or spending a ton of time in the sun with no protection on your hair. And you could totally choose how you want to interact with those things based on what your hair can handle. So I'm not trying to say that there are no bad things that you can do to your hair or no things that damage your hair. I'm saying that I want to include nuance, whether we're talking about things that are probably good for your hair or probably bad for your hair. That's the important part to me. Next myth. It is harmful to wash your hair every single day. Y'all, the way that this belief defined like a decade, I fully bought into it. I feel like within culture, just so many people bought into it. But is it actually harmful to wash your hair every day? Well, this is actually where the nuance comes in. When I first answered this question, I was looking at it as a hairstylist. And so I was primarily looking at the strands of your hair and thinking about going from wash to dry to styled. The truth is that actually can be stressful for the hair. Sometimes moderately, sometimes severely, depending on your routine and your hair type. And that can be damaging over time. Sometimes it helps me to think of hair like fabric. And if you imagine a shirt and you put it through the wash and you put it through a rough cycle, like high heat in the washing machine, high heat in the dryer, you're ironing it, and then you're doing that like multiple times a week, that hair is gonna look way more worn at the end of 6 months than one that only does that like once a month. And that's an example of an intense wash to styled cycle. You can obviously do a much more gentle cycle like hand washing and air drying that same shirt. So when you look at it from a strand only perspective, yeah, it actually is a little better for your hair strands to go through that wash to styled cycle as infrequently as possible. Even though you can kind of hone it in, whether you're doing a really intense wash to styled cycle or a gentle one, it overall weathers your hair less to do it as infrequently as you can. But what I didn't understand 10 years ago is that hair care is not just about your strands, it's also about your scalp. And if you ask a dermatologist how often you should wash your hair, the focus changes because they're not just looking at the cosmetic appearance of your hair, they're looking at the health of your scalp. And their general guidance is to wash your hair every 1 to 2 days, which is a far cry from washing your hair as infrequently as possible. And when you don't shampoo your hair enough for what your scalp needs, you can end up with things like flakiness, buildup, irritation, inflammation, and even impeded hair growth. So scalp care actually matters a lot more than we realize when we were loading our hair up with dry shampoo 10 years ago. And just like the skin on our face, the skin on your scalp is highly personal. Some people have more dry scalps that benefit from less frequent washing or more gentle washing. Some people have more oily scalps and they benefit from more washing. And then some people have unique situations like seborrheic dermatitis or psoriasis that require their own approach as well. Based on that, my best advice is to listen to your scalp. If it feels tight and uncomfortable, it might be kind of dry and you would benefit from less or more gentle washing. Whereas if you have a lot of oil production, you're gonna benefit from more frequent washing. For me personally, if I try to stretch my wash days more than 3 days apart, my scalp lets me know. It starts getting itchy, it starts getting kind of inflamed, there's buildup and flakies, and I'm like, okay, cool, got it. That does not work for us. 3 days it is. And that also gives me the benefit of not having to go through the wash dry cycle every day. So like I said earlier, we can't always or never our way through this. It is simply too complex for that. The real answer lies somewhere between your strand needs and your scalp needs. And the good news is that you can adjust both to make it work for you. If you have a more oily scalp and you need to wash your hair frequently, you can make your wash to dry routine gentler. You can do low heat drying, heatless hairstyles, and make sure that you're using protective products to keep your hair as healthy as possible. And then if you love a more intense styling routine, you can make your wash days more effective by doing things like a clarifying shampoo and a super nourishing conditioner in order to make sure that all the buildup is off, all the conditioning is in before we go back through the whole cycle, and then it can last a few days in between. So yes, washing, drying, styling your hair less frequently, that is going to lead to less damage on your hair strands. And that is not the whole story. You've got to consider both your strand care and your scalp care. And when you put those together, you have a really good chance of putting together a hair care routine that's gonna work for you long term and not just follow something that kind of like you saw on the internet and are hoping fits your hair. Quick pause. I want to hear from you. What hair care myths have you fallen for in the past? What did you think about silicones and how frequently you should wash your hair? I want to hear from you. I love hearing your stories and I read every single one. And if you're finding this helpful so far, hit the like button to let me know that you enjoy videos like this. I think this is the myth that I fell the hardest for, and it took me talking to cosmetic chemists to help bust me out of it because the internet is incredibly dramatic about silicones. They wrap your hair in plastic, they suffocate your hair, they keep your hair from absorbing good ingredients, they only fake the look of healthy hair. I may have said some of those exact things on this channel. There are clearly two sides to this argument. Let's break it down, starting with the scary story. Silicones are portrayed as this heavy, like shrink-wrapped plastic coating that goes around your hair, chokes it out, keeps good things from getting in, only fakes the look of healthy hair, while it actually causes dullness, buildup, and weakness on the hair, which sounds incredibly ominous. But when we really look at silicones, they are a lightweight synthetic film-forming ingredient that creates a smooth protective layer around the hair that functions to smooth the cuticle, reduce friction and breakage, make detangling easier, add shine, reduce frizz, provides heat protection, and shields from UV damage. Which sounds pretty good, and I'm gonna ask you to just shift your perspective with me to, instead of seeing silicones as a villain slowly choking your hair out, to see it possibly as an invisible, flexible bodyguard. The concern that keeps most people from making that pivot is buildup, and there is some basis in truth for that. Some silicones are water soluble, so that means as soon as you get in the shower, the water hits your hair, the silicones are just gonna run off your hair. But others, and arguably more popular ones, like dimethicone, amidimethicone, and cyclopethicone, are non-water soluble, and they need shampoo in order to get off of the hair. And that leaves some people to be concerned that there's going to be more silicone on the hair than the shampoo can cleanse, and therefore when you finish your shower, there is still some residual silicone from before. And then as that cycle continues, you end up with more and more and more buildup and more weighed down hair. And the truth is that that can happen, but if you are properly cleansing for the amount of product that you are using, that is not gonna end up being an issue. As long as you end up throwing a clarifying shampoo into your routine or a volumizing shampoo into your routine every week to 2 weeks, you should be good. If you're noticing a lot of buildup over time, that means that your cleansing is not up to the amount of buildup forming ingredients that are in your hair care routine. And by the way, ingredients other than silicones can build up on the hair. It is not just silicones. And so instead of vilifying products that can build up, I would just rather have a really good cleansing routine that takes care of them and get to use the products that I enjoy. So my answer to the concern of buildup when it comes to silicones is that yeah, buildup can happen. It can happen with a lot of different ingredients, and as long as you're really dialing in your cleansing routine, it's not gonna be an issue. Let me also remind you again, everybody's hair is different. So something that might be really buildup causing on one person's hair might not even make a dent in another person's hair. We're all figuring out what works for our hair type and what makes everything kind of flow together. I really think that is the biggest issue that people have with silicones, but let's keep going down the list. The second thing that I think really freaks people out is the idea that silicones are a film former on the hair. But I have news for you. All conditioning ingredients are film formers. That is how they work. The majority of things don't actually get absorbed into the hair. A lot of our hair products are just about coating and creating what we need on the outside of the hair. In fact, oils, which we love as a conditioning ingredient, have a lot of overlap with how silicones work. Oils also create an occlusive layer. They lock in moisture, they increase shine, reduce friction, protect the cuticle, and require shampoo to be removed. There are a few oils that have a molecular size small enough to be penetrated into the hair, but the majority of them do the exact same thing that silicones do by sitting on the outside of the hair. The difference is that they are heavier. And this is not an either or situation. I love an oil, I love a silicone. It's all part of this complete hair breakfast. What I think is important here is that the mechanism that makes us scared of silicone is happening with oils as well. So if you feel good about using oils on your hair, you can also feel safe about using silicones on your hair. Third concern is your hair's ability to breathe. And I don't understand that because your hair is not alive. It does not need to breathe, it cannot be choked. In fact, protecting your hair from environmental pollutants can be good for it. Protecting your hair from the humidity that will destroy your hairstyle can help you quite a bit. There's no reason to be afraid of your hair being strangled or choked out by silicones. That's just simply not a thing. The fourth one, and this is actually another really big one, is the idea that silicones are just a plastic coating on your hair. I think that just simply overstates what's happening. When you say plastic coating, it sounds like a toxic kind of permanent shell, whereas really it's a thin, temporary, flexible coating. If I offered you a little tiny, thin, transparent sleeve that you could put on each individual one of your hairs to make them more manageable, shinier, more protected from heat, you probably would do it. And that is exactly what silicones are doing. It's not like a thick plastic shell that you can't take off. It is just a little protective, flexible coating that's gonna keep your hair healthier and happier because it's more protected. Going right along with that plastic coating idea, I think we need to talk about the idea that silicones keep good things from getting into your hair. Okay, here's the truth. Not all silicones are created equal. Some are super duper lightweight and actives can easily get through them, whereas others are heavier and more occlusive and it would be difficult for actives to get through them. But let's just go ahead and pretend like every kind of silicone is super duper occlusive and we have to deal with that situation. Can we still get good actives into our hair? Yes. First of all, the silicone layer itself can actually help actives get into your hair because it holds the active against your hair so that it has more of a chance to do what it's supposed to do. But second, when your cleansing routine matches the amount of product buildup that you experience between washes, you effectively reset your hair canvas to 0 every time you wash it. So it is ready again to absorb those actives before you put on your silicones. You just wanna make sure you're focusing on the order that you apply your products in. If you have very active, heavy products, you're gonna do those first. For example, this one is the Virtue Recovery Damage Reverse Serum. This one has a lot of actives, not a lot of occlusive ingredients. This would go on first. Same thing with the Hyaluronic Hydrating Hair Treatment from the Inky List. These are the kind of like active, focused, lightweight products that you would put on first, and then follow it with something that has more silicone in it. It's kind of like applying a serum first and then a moisturizer. You could also do this if you're doing an oil. Anything that's more occlusive can go after your more lightweight active focus products. This one, while it does have other ingredients, is pretty silicone forward, and so I would use this afterward to both hold in my actives and protect my hair, add shine, manageability, all of that. So when paired with a good cleansing routine, you don't have to worry about your silicones locking out good ingredients. In fact, they can help to lock in good ones and protect your hair in the process. And even though I am pro silicone, I will say that it isn't for everybody. I know that people in the curly hair community really prefer routines without silicones. And if you have found that silicones really don't work in your routine, that's valid. And I do believe you when you say, hey, I swapped this out and it worked better for me. And I also know that my routine has actually gotten better as a result of adding in silicones. It just goes back to what I said earlier. There is no always and never. We're all just trying to figure it out. And that brings me back to the statement that I have actually made on my channel, which is that I would rather have actually healthy hair than fake it with silicone. Girl, why not both? Because what I've learned is that you can repair your hair with really great products like K18. You can deeply nourish your hair and you can protect and enhance your results with silicones. These two things are not in opposition, they are actually complementary to each other. And I feel like I've seen this actually play out watching different creators. I've seen Isabella DeMarco go on an 8-month-long journey where she gave up silicones and did really great hair practices, but at the end of the day actually discovered that her hair was a lot healthier and happier when she had silicones in her routine, and she ended up bringing them back in. And then we have Abby Young, who has incredibly beautiful, healthy hair that she deeply nourishes and repairs and cares for, and uses silicones to enhance and protect. And hundreds of people have tried her method and found that it really, really works for them as well. So I feel like through watching other creators and experimenting with my own hair care, I have discovered that silicones, while we could paint them in this big, scary villain light, actually function much more like protectors and enhancers. And I think that's really important to talk about. So no, silicones are not here to destroy your hair. In fact, when you pair them with good cleansing routine and you apply your products in a helpful order, you can actually get a lot of great benefits from them. Okay, let's wrap this whole thing up. So I think the big takeaway is that there's not like an always or never when it comes to hair. We want to listen to our hair, both our strands and our scalp, and find the balance that is right for each of us individually. And we busted some major myths. You don't have to wash your hair only every 5 days. You can find the balance that's right for you. And silicones are not out to destroy your hair or make it fall out or choke it or any of the other stuff. It can actually be a really helpful part of your hair routine. And the overarching lesson is to look for nuance, experiment thoughtfully, find the balance with your hair, and overall, don't get taken in by black and white statements that just sound good for internet clicks and views. Your hair is unique and you're allowed to treat it that way. All that said, I would love to hear from you guys. What hair myths have you fallen for in the past, and how do you find balance in your hair routine, whether that's between strand and scalp care or just in what products you're using? I would love to hear from you. But all that said, that is it for today's video. So whether you're old or new, you, or a casual lurker, thank you for spending time with me, and I'll see you in my next video. Mwah! Bye! I fear I am getting off track. I need more chocolate chips. Vroom vroom, let's go. Yeah! I really just sounded like a tropical bird.